Hey guys, welcome to this video on how to align your career using astrology. I'm Cassandra, the Saffron Sage, helping you use astrology to evolve. And in this video, we're talking about using astrology to align your career. So in this video, we're talking about the 10th house, the house that represents what you can be known for. So the cusp of the 10th house is also the midheaven. We're going to go over the sign on your midheaven, the element, and what house the ruler of your midheaven lands in. Now, if this sounds unfamiliar to you, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it step by step. The first step of this process is going to be getting your natal chart and knowing how to read it to find this information. So that's going to be the next section of the video. If you already know where your midheaven is, what house it's in, what planet it is, you can skip that part, but let's get into that now. Okay guys, so for this part we're going to really go over from the beginning how to find all the information you'll need for this video on astro.com. So I'm going to go to astro.com and I'm going to go to free horoscopes, and then on the right hand side under drawings and calculations you want to go to extended chart selection. So you can just be a guest user, accept, and then type in your name and whether you're female or male. Here's where you enter your birthday and make sure you enter the correct time of birth here and pick where you were born, and then you can write the city and state. And make sure you select it from the drop-down list. If you don't select it, this part won't work. And then hit continue. So then agree. Then click here to show chart. Okay, so this is the chart that you'll see. Okay, so now we're looking at the screen for the sample chart we're going to do. So I'm going to quickly show you how to gather the information you'll need for this video. First, you're going to look for the MC at the top of the chart. You're going to look at what symbol is in this top of the chart. If you can't read the symbols yet, you can go down here and see MC 14 SCO, that's Scorpio. But I know this is Scorpio, so this person has a Scorpio midheaven. So then the next step is to see, are there planets in the 10th house? So this is your midheaven here, and this is your 10th house. This person does not have any planets in their 10th house. This isn't bad, we'll talk about this later. And then the third step is to find the ruler of your MC, your midheaven, and find where it's placed in your chart. So I know I'm looking for Pluto because Pluto rules Scorpio, and that is here, right here. There's traditional rulership and modern rulership. So in modern astrology, Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. I have a chart on this that you can download for free to spell it out, so you can just look up the sign and you can see which one. If you're not sure whether to go with modern or traditional, I would recommend modern, but you could actually look at both. And so we'll practice that on this client when we get to the practice reading later. But for right now, all we need to know is what house is Pluto sitting in. So we find the P symbol because I know that's Pluto. And look, it's right here in the 7th house. So you see the number on the inside of the wheel here. That's how you tell what house it's in. Now let's talk about the sign and the element that your midheaven is in. I do have another video series on this that goes over each sign on the midheaven, so you can watch that next. But for today, we're still going to go through it just to give you an overview. So if you have Aries on your midheaven, that represents leadership, taking initiative, taking charge, and being courageous. If you have Taurus, it's all about comfort, security, being a master builder, building something that lasts, whether it be a physical thing or whether it be an empire. You could also work with nature or with food with Taurus on the midheaven. With Gemini on the midheaven, this is communication. This is speaking, and speaking in a way that you're delivering the information that the people need to hear in the order that they need to hear it, really having an awareness if you're teaching or if you're sharing information of what facts and what little pieces of information people need in what order, and delivering it the best way possible. If you have Cancer on the midheaven, this is nurturing. So it's really about using your emotional intelligence, your emotional security, your ability to be present with other people's emotions and make them feel comfortable, and also the ability to create and lead and gather and nurture a clan of people. So nurturing groups is a really great way for Cancer midheaven to use that energy. The next sign we have is Leo. For Leo, it's all about getting attention, becoming okay with getting attention, being in the limelight. And if you don't relate to this, just know that there's some part of your soul that wants this. It doesn't mean that you always relate to it, but it really, think of the actor. So I think of Leo as the actor, the entertainer of the zodiac. So doing things that are entertaining, doing things that are fun, being generous, being warm, having vitality, sometimes leading a team. These are all Leo midheaven type things. The next sign is Virgo. For Virgo midheaven, Virgo is about service and order. So you might fall more in the line of the order and do spreadsheets or data entry or organized writing or other kinds of tasks that involve order and being right and being precise. Okay, so surgeons even, all kinds of careers that really require precision. Then there's service, so that can fall under any field, but it's about being needed. Someone with Virgo on the midheaven needs to be needed. If you have Libra on the midheaven, it's about balance and harmony. Now this can show up in a couple ways. One is that you bring balance and harmony through righting injustices, righting things that are wrong. The other way can be even the opposite, where it's almost like you can bring someone down a notch if they are a little too far up there, if you get what I'm trying to say here. But with Libra, it's about partnerships, leveraging connections with people to get to the top, and being the connector that helps other people get to their top of their chart, of their midheaven, of their point of glory, and communication. The next sign is Scorpio. If you have Scorpio in the midheaven, it's about helping people get to the bottom of things. So this can be an investigator, a private investigator. It can be a counselor, a psychologist, a tarot reader, a healer that really helps people dig deep, understand their limiting beliefs, unearth the trauma they've experienced or the challenges, and bring them to the light where they can be healed. It's not uncommon for people with Scorpio midheaven to have gone through some really crazy transformations or challenges in their life, and by doing so, they have abilities to help other people. The next midheaven is Sagittarius. So for Sagittarius midheaven, it's about expansion. It's like the wise teacher of the zodiac. It's about exploring. So this could be like exploring through travel or exploring through philosophy and the exploration of the mind, and always wanting that next step, because Sagittarius is the archer. So they always want that next step. They always want to be in that next place so they can have really, really big ideas and hold a very big vision for people. So that's one of their strengths. They can also be public speakers, motivators, or inspiring teachers. The next sign is Capricorn. So for Capricorn on the midheaven, it's really about the traditional way of making money. This could be something like a stockbroker, a realtor, a lawyer, like these tried and true professions, anything traditional. And if it's something else with Capricorn on the midheaven, you'll be more successful if you embrace the qualities of self-sacrifice, discipline, and setting really, really big goals that are long-term. The next sign is Aquarius. So Aquarius is unconventional. If you have Aquarius on the midheaven, whatever you do, you're going to do it in a unique or different kind of way. So this can show up as working with technology and science and doing something evolved like this. It can also show up as working online or just being a little bit different. Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, is a great awakener, but it's also a weirdo. I mean, Aquarius is strange, different, unique, leading edge. So you could do something that is strange, different, unique, or leading edge in your career, or move toward being more and more unique, more and more different, more and more unpredictable. The next sign is Pisces. So for Pisces on the midheaven, this is a very healing placement. So it can be someone who does healing work. It can also be someone who does something involved with fantasy, because Pisces rules like sci-fi and dreams, like dreaminess, anything dreamy. So with Pisces on the midheaven, you could do like making children's movies and animating them, or being a screenwriter, or again, being a healer, doing things that are very dreamy that somehow take people into another world. There's another worldliness about Pisces, and so that can show up in several different ways. Even someone who like maybe works in VR, you know, doing things like that that just transport people to another world. Okay, so that is it for the signs. Now let's talk a little bit of the elements. The elements are fire, air, water, and earth. And so we'll just start with fire. With fire, it's either Aries, Sagittarius, or Leo. If you have any of those signs on the midheaven, that means passion. Okay, fire is passion, it's movement, it's creativity, it's expansion, it moves fast, it catches fast. And it has a lot of energy. So you're likely to be happier in a profession where you can expand, where you can grow, where you can keep changing, keep growing like a fire does, where you can have some element of freedom, where you can, again, expand or move in some kind of way. Now, for some people, that will be physical movement. For others, it's about leading the pack, or about being able to continue to take yourself to the next level. Okay, if you have a fire sign on your midheaven, you probably would not be happy in boring, mundane, everyday jobs that are the same every day and tedious and routine, unless you have other placements that mitigate that. So the next element, we'll talk about air next. So air is communication. So if you have Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius on your midheaven, then you are likely to have communication be a factor in your work. So this could be speaking, public speaking, it could be writing, it could be social media management, providing information that way. It could be working in communications, that whole field. It could be that you're in your field or in your work, you end up communicating a lot. You're the person who communicates. Teaching, learning, matters of the mind. So any kind of work that has to do with what you know, needing knowledge, needing, you know, a unique skill set that requires a certain kind of know-how, this is all air sign energy. So moving on to water signs of Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, these have emotional intelligence. So if you have your midheaven in a water sign, you are likely to be known for some kind of work where you get to display that emotional intelligence and really show off how, you know, emotionally aware, compassionate, and nurturing you can be. Now, Scorpio is a bit of an outlier because yes, it's a water sign, and yes, it has emotional depth, but it doesn't always, it's not always big on the compassionate side. So I would say Cancer and Pisces are the more compassionate ones of the water signs, whereas with Scorpio, the intensity of the emotions are still there. Compassion can be part of it, but it's not always. And so it just depends. Sometimes Scorpio energy will want to get revenge. Okay, so it just depends. And there's a positive outlet for that too. So one example is being like a detective or an investigator. You know, like good cop, bad cop, where they put someone in a room and someone has to investigate and get the information out of them. Someone with a Scorpio midheaven would do that, or strong Scorpio placements, because Scorpio is penetrating and it has that ability to draw out information from other people. But moving on past the water signs to the earth signs. So if you have an earth sign on your midheaven, this would be Taurus, Capricorn, or Virgo. You can do things with the physical world. This involves working with land, working with houses, working with physical things, building things, working in the food industry, or even like the hotel industry. Just working with the physical aspects of life. And it also can be more than just like building things on a physical level. If you're a Capricorn, for example, you'd probably be building an empire. But it really is about building. It's about moving slowly and steadily toward a goal in a way that makes sense. So you really need it to make sense if you have these signs on the midheaven. Whereas if someone with like Pisces on the midheaven, they need to trust the universe. It doesn't have to make sense. They can just go with the flow. And so this is where really understanding your astrology can help you understand your sort of strategy in your career that's in alignment for you and how it's can be very different than someone else. Now let's talk about if you have planets in the 10th house. I'm going to briefly go over what each planet means, but in general, you guys, the more planets you have in the 10th house, the more important career is to you. This is true for every house of the zodiac. You can think of a planet like an anchor that puts weight into that area of life. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, like if you have 4 or 5 planets in your 10th house, 4 planets or more is a stellium. A stellium in astrology is a group of planets in one sign or one house. And it just means there's a lot of emphasis in that area. And it can actually cause an imbalance for the person because sometimes they have to work really, really hard to do other things. So if you have a 10th house stellium, your career will be the most important thing. If you have your moon in the 10th house or even one planet in the 10th house, career is going to be important. What you're known for is going to matter to you. So let's talk briefly about what each one means. If you have the sun in the 10th house, you are likely to be recognized for what you do because the sun shines, okay? Wherever the sun is, this is where you shine. And yours is at the top of your chart in the 10th house. It's a really, really beautiful placement for someone who wants to have a career because it just puts that ability to radiate warmth and energy and vitality in matters of career. You'll really have the stamina to push forward in career if you have the sun in the 10th house. If you have the moon here, this makes you more sensitive to your career. It's very, very important to you that you do well in your career. Another thing about moon in the 10th is if you have an audience or you work with the public in any way, if you have moon in the 10th, people will know your intentions. They will see your intentions. They will understand you, whether you're doing something for good or for bad. So if you have an audience and you have your moon in the 10th house, you really got to watch out because they are going to hold you accountable and they're going to let you know if you mess up because they can see your deeper emotional reasons for things. It's easy for people to see that part of you. If you have Venus in the 10th, this is a really beautiful placement for abundance. It's a great placement for artists, people who work with beauty, people who work with aesthetics, things that are Venusian, right? So Venus rules beauty. It rules how we, not just beauty, but like harmony, right? Beauty that makes things more harmonious. Venus is also abundance. So having Venus in the 10th is a really good placement if you want to have money, wealth, abundance, all that stuff. Mercury in the 10th, this means you can plan and strategize when it comes to career well, or you can communicate about your career. Your career will be infused with communication. You can become known for being the communicator in some way, shape, or form. Think public speaking, being an author, being a writer, things like this. The next planet would be Mars. So Mars in the 10th, you can take action and you are motivated to be good in your career, to be happy in your career. Like you are success motivated and you have the ability to focus in on what is going to make you successful. This is a very strong and fierce placement. And so you just have the ability to do it. You just have to be confident. So the more confident you are with Mars in the 10th, the more likely you're going to be successful. If you have Jupiter in the 10th, this is great for career success. This is a beautiful planet. Jupiter is abundance. So to have the planet of abundance and luck in the 10th house, this is just a really great placement for career success. You're always going to want to expand. You might want to teach. You just are always going to want to go further and further. The challenge with Jupiter here is that You have to watch out and make sure your goals are realistic. So that is one challenge, is that you can want to go way, 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 way far, right? Because Jupiter wants to expand. It wants to always be growing and learning, and it's excited, but it doesn't always understand limits. So knowing what your limits are is important if you have Jupiter here. And then Saturn. If you have Saturn in the 10th, Saturn is generally a negative planet because it restricts anything it touches. But in the 10th house is actually a good place to have Saturn, because the 10th house naturally is ruled by Saturn. So this means you have the discipline and the skills to take one step at a time to build a solid foundation for the future. It also means for your career, you'll have to put in more work to get the same amount of success. But usually people with Saturn in the 10th can be successful because it's like if they put in the work, they can do it. They can learn, and you have to learn the discipline with Saturn here. Wherever Saturn is in your chart, you have to learn the discipline and the lessons of it. So whatever sign you have there, you can learn what Saturn in that sign means. It will help you to overcome those obstacles, so you can really, finally unlock the blessings of it. And then if you have Uranus here, you could have an unconventional career, something different. Or this could be an area where you change a lot. You could change careers a few times, or you could have one big major career change in life. If you have Neptune here, this is spiritual, this very spiritual placement. You could be very, very spiritual or compassionate. If you have Neptune in the 10th toward your job, you could do compassionate work. Or spiritual work. And then if you have Pluto here, this is transformation. So wherever you have Pluto in your chart, you're most likely to be able to transform. It doesn't mean you will, because you have to do it still. You have to take the actions to transform. But if you do, you have the potential to have, it's like, if it's in the 2nd house, you can have wealth, right? If it's in the 10th house of career, you can go from whatever worst career you can imagine to the best career, but you have to, do the work that it takes you to get there. You could also have transformations, just some really powerful transformations that are out of your control when it comes to work if you have Pluto here. So this would be like a very shocking and unexpected layoff. So you have a potential to really, really transform your career. And if you have more than one planet in the 10th house, you kind of have to look at what they both mean together. So let's say you have Saturn and Jupiter. This is confusing because Jupiter expands everything it touches, Saturn contracts. So what does it mean if you have expansion and contraction? Well, it means you have to learn the lessons of Saturn to get the benefits of Jupiter. So you'll have to learn self-discipline. You have to be disciplined. You're not going to be an overnight success. It will take you 10 years. So that's what I have on the planets in the 10th house. Now, what if you don't have planets in the 10th house? This is a really common question so many people ask, and the answer is it's okay. Okay? If you don't have planets, it's not a negative thing. Okay? This is not a deficit. There are more houses in your astrology chart than there are planets. So you are going to have some empty houses no matter what. And then if you have a stellium, you might have a lot of empty houses. Even if you have no planets in your 10th house, you still have a career, and we still have other things in the chart we look at. So planets take over. There's a recipe to understand every single house of your chart. If planets are there, you look at those first. If there's no planets, you just look at what sign is on the cusp, which in this case is your midheaven, whatever sign is on your midheaven. And this leads us to the next part of the video, which is the most important part of this video. So here is where we get into this idea of planetary rulership. Every single sign in the zodiac is ruled by a planet, or sometimes a planet will rule 2 signs. But every single sign has a planet that rules it, that is in charge of it. So for every single house of the zodiac, today we're just talking about the 10th, you can look to where that planet is in your chart, and it gives you information. This is how we weave together this story in astrology. So let's say you have Aries on your midheaven. Well, what planet rules Aries? Mars. So then you go and you find Mars in your natal chart, and you look to see what house it's in. That is what you need to know for this section of the video. So I'm going to go through what it means for each of the 12 houses of your midheaven ruler and where it's located in your chart. So if you have the ruler of your midheaven in the first house, this is a personal brand. This is the house of identity. So you are your brand, or your work is very, very important to you, and it's so important that it's fused with your identity. So it's like you can't really separate who you are from what you do. Someone with the first house for their midheaven ruler, their 10th house ruler, they are going to be really, really upset if their career is not going how they want it to go, because they feel like they are not who they want to be if their career isn't on track. If the ruler of your midheaven is in your second house in your natal chart, this is about value, money, possessions, and skills. For you, knowing what your skills are, really developing them, is key to being successful in your career. It will really matter to you what your skills are, what your skill set is, what value you bring to the table. So you cannot, if you have this placement, you can't just kind of hope that it all works out. You really have to know that what you're bringing to the table is, like, you have to be confident in that. And then you can go a step further with this and then look at the sign that is on the cusp of that house for even more information on how to bring value or how to be the most confident. If your midheaven ruler is in the third house of teaching, learning, and communication, you may communicate, you may teach, this is also the house of neighborhoods, so you could teach something in your local neighborhood or put on events in your local neighborhood or be successful in by making short trips back and forth. This house also rules short trips. It rules writing, but not like publishing big bodies of work, but like writing for a periodical that you write over and over and over, like repeatedly, or doing repeated short bursts of communication of any kind. So that's like phone calls, sales emails, stuff like that. This is the house of teaching and learning. So a lot of people with this placement will teach or learn in some way related to their work. If you have the ruler of your midheaven in your fourth house, this is of home and security. For a lot of people with this placement, you have a home-based business, or you own your own business, or you have a home office. For other people, you might be involved in real estate, you might have a family business or carry on the family lineage of some kind, the family name in your business, that kind of thing. You could also do feng shui or any other kind of work that deals with the home. Emotional security is another aspect of the fourth house, so you could somehow have that be a theme involved in your work as well. If you have the ruler of your midheaven in the fifth house, this is all about fun and creativity. So you might make money off of your creative abilities. And remember, guys, creativity isn't just writing and painting. It can also be making YouTube videos creatively, or, creating content on social media, creating a blog, creating recipes, any kind of creative activity that you do that you enjoy, you can make money off of that. This is also the house of children, so for some people, their work could be connected with children, although that's not as common of a indicator. If the ruler of your midheaven is in your sixth house, this is the house of service and of daily routines and schedule. So this could show up a few ways. You could do a profession where you are of service to people, like be a surgeon or work in healing arts, or help people with nutrition. Another way this could show up is that your routine matters a lot, and depending on if you have planets there, you could have a very strong routine and need a strong routine for your work. You could do shift work, or you could be motivated to get out of a 9-to-5 and have a freedom lifestyle. In some way, what you do on a daily basis is connected to your work. So this is like the house of our work schedule. But for you to have this planet here, it means your work schedule in some way, shape, or form is more important. This is also a house of mentor-mentee, employer-employee relationships, where one person is above the other person. Okay, and in traditional astrology, they called it subordinates, but we don't really use that word a lot anymore. So it's just about anyone who's like a teacher-student or uneven relationship. And you could be the teacher, or you could be the student. You could be the boss, or you could be the employee, or you could go through different phases of life where either one of those things are highlighted. If you have the ruler of your midheaven in the seventh house of partnerships, You could do a business with your spouse, or you could have a partner, a husband, wife, or significant other who somehow their work is connected to you, your work is connected to them. So you could work together on your business together, or they could perhaps be in a field that they introduce you to someone in your field and they help you in some way. Somehow your partnerships really matter in business. This placement can also mean that your business partnerships can make you or break you. Your business partnerships or your relationship with your spouse can make you or break you. Now, whether that's good or bad is going to depend on aspects to the ruler of your midheaven. For the 8th house, if your 10th house ruler lands here, this is a few different possibilities. So this is the house of transformation, and it talks about sex, death, and other people's money. So there's a lot that this could mean. So the first way it could show up in career is through managing other people's money. So you could be an accountant. You could work for a business that does investing for people. You could help people make money in their businesses. No matter what you do, so even if you do tarot readings and you have this placement, you could do tarot readings about how to help people manage their money or something like that, or how to grow in their business. Another way this shows up is through psychic work. Okay, this is the placement that represents psychic work. Not everyone who has this placement wants to do psychic work for money, but they have the ability, because remember, your 10th house is your role in the world. So someone could technically be independently wealthy or have money from another source, and this could just be the role that they take in the world. It doesn't have to be something that you do as a job that you get paid for and make money, although it can be. It depends on your chart. Another way the 8th house ruler can show up is through taboo topics, sex work, sex in general, the occult, anything dark, anything that is considered dark by other people, anything you wouldn't talk about. So death comes under this placement. This doesn't mean you're going to die or someone's going to die. If you have your midheaven ruler in the 8th house, you could do work that deals with the topic of death. So you could be a death doula. You could work for hospice. You could work at a morgue. You could help terminally ill patients. You could help people cross over to the other side. You could work with families who are grieving. Any topic that involves death could be a part of your work. And then the last indicator of this house would be your partner's money. This is actually the house that represents your spouse's money or your boyfriend or girlfriend's money. So for some people, if they have this placement, maybe they're managing their spouse's money, or they're dealing with money from their spouse, or someday they get money from their spouse. Remember though, this could go good or bad. So it could be the opposite, where you have debt from your spouse and you have to pay it off. So let's move on to the 9th house. The 9th house, if you have your midheaven ruler here, this is about publishing. You could write a book. You could do something that involves the meaning of life, like philosophy, religion, or spirituality. You could teach, you could be a preacher. You could really infuse into what you do meaning, right? It has to mean something. There's also this sense of adventure, travel, other countries with this placement. So this is foreign affairs. This is foreign languages. This is going to other countries or working with people from other countries or other cultures. This is also publishing and the law. If it is publishing, it's publishing a body of work, a long-term, long-form work, like a long book that you've written, not a short, quick little blog post. That goes in the 3rd house. In the 9th house, it's these longer, more serious, committed bodies of work. Long distance travel is another theme we see in the 9th house, so your work could involve that if you have the ruler of your 9th house in this place. The 10th house, if the ruler of your 10th house is in your 10th house, this is a really great placement for career success. And it brings a straightforwardness and a simplicity to the interpretation. So let's give an example. Let's say you have Gemini on your midheaven and you have Mercury, which rules Gemini, in your 10th house. This would mean that you could communicate for a living. You could be a speaker or writer. In most cases, we're going to blend the energy of the 10th house with whatever house the ruler is in, but when it's in the 10th house, there's nothing to blend. You end up being very simply the archetype of that planet in your work. This depends on other things, but as an overall general rule, this is true. The 11th house, if your 10th house ruler is in the 11th house, this is also a good placement because 11th house is the gains you make from income. It's the second to the 10th, so it's the money you make from your work. So people with their 10th house ruler in their 11th can make money. Okay, this is a good placement for making money. You could also work with groups of any kind. So this could range, you guys, from having your own social media presence to working in some kind of community group, like a group of realtors in a real estate office, and you all are in a community together and you all work together, or on a team of some kind. But it can also be even doing something like being on the cast of a TV show. This would be working in a group setting. And if you have any planets in your 11th house, but the ruler of your 10th especially in the 11th house, the groups that you belong to are more likely to be successful, but that also depends on what the planet is. So if it's Saturn or Mars, it's not as guarantee of success because those aren't positive planets. Although, you guys, with a video like this, aspects to the chart ruler, aspects to the midheaven ruler, that's what's going to tell the story on whether these categories are going to show up in a good way or a negative way for you, or whether you'll have obstacles to work through or not. So let's move on to the 12th house. If you have the ruler of your midheaven in the 12th house, you could prefer working in isolation, or you could work with 12th house themes, such as being a prison guard or working at a mental institution, you know, like a mental hospital or a treatment center, or something where people are isolated, or even retreats where people are isolated from the community to go there and you give them services. You could also do spiritual work or prefer to be behind the scenes. But just because you're behind the scenes in that 12th house doesn't mean that you aren't making an impact or aren't making an influence. So that you could think like the owner of a company that isn't public, that calls all the shots and no one knows who they are. So you could do that kind of thing. You could be a ghostwriter where you write for other writers and no one knows you doing it, but you still have a measure of success. So now it's time for the sample chart reading, and we're going to look at this midheaven. So for this person who got lucky enough to have their chart read, you guys, if you want to be entered in, make sure you go to my Instagram to get entered. But she has her midheaven in Scorpio. So already we know she's going to want to get to the bottom of the things. If she does any kind of healing arts, then those healing arts are going to be things that really penetrate and go deep and help people cleanse, something where people leave cleansed. And we can look to, because she has Scorpio, this is a perfect example for learning, because we can look to where Pluto, the modern ruler, is, and we can look to where Mars, the traditional ruler, is, and look at the differences. For Pluto in the 7th, this means she might do well at one-on-one work. And then for Mars in the 3rd, this means she might do well at work in her local environment, in her local community. She might meet people in her local community or do a group, some kind of group class. And then she might, then offer one-on-one support for her business. She might teach or learn. And here's how you can take it a step further to really understand the story is 1, Mars in the 3rd is in Aries. This is a planet of leadership. So she might take the lead helping people dig up their limiting beliefs or heal or cleanse in some way. And she might do that through like showing people a process. And she might teach them in person or in a Facebook group, because the 3rd house represents groups. She could also do some kind of social media where she's showing up every day. Then we have Pluto in the 7th. We can also see that Pluto is sitting with the moon and Uranus here in the 7th house. So relationships are going to be really, really important, whether it is client relationships or whether it is like romantic, significant other type relationship. Another thing we noticed about this chart is Neptune is conjunct the midheaven, okay? So it's technically not in the 10th house, but anything conjunct the midheaven, which means it's sitting next to this point in the chart, it's going to matter. And we have Neptune, which is a very spiritual planet. And so I would also look to where is the ruler of Neptune. So think about, guys, what does Neptune rule? Pisces. So we look to where is Pisces. Pisces is on the 2nd house. So this means she could make money from doing healing work. Now let's look at the element, because we talked about elements earlier. So what's the element of Scorpio? Water. So because Scorpio is a water sign, this brings emotional depth into this placement. This could be a counselor who really counsels people. This could be a therapist, a tarot reader, any kind of work where they use their emotional intelligence and their spirituality, not necessarily in a way where they're going to like teach you what you need to learn. Maybe a little bit of that because we have the third house involved. They're all either, there's water, there's fire, and there's earth. So this could be using her emotional intelligence to do something like take action. So this could be like doing hot yoga, okay? Doing a hot yoga class in her local environment that helps people transform their relationships and cleanse. And they leave that experience cleansed. And she's teaching them, but she's teaching them in a way where she's telling them what to do. Because Mars in Aries is going to tell people what to do. It's going to tell you exactly what to do. Okay, so it makes a sextile to Venus in the fourth house, which is home in Gemini. So now we bring in the communication. But going back to just looking at the midheaven and the midheaven ruler and where it's sitting, we have two to choose from. This is going to bring in, if you just kind of brainstorm, third house plus seventh house. What does it mean? What does it mean if you're teaching relationships, teaching about relationships, and you just kind of brainstorm the keywords? So what are some more keywords of the third house, guys? The third house is going to be communication, communicating about relationships, communicating one-on-one, communicating about spirituality of trauma. Any of this stuff could play in. Now, if I was doing a full reading, I would look to some other things here. I would look to where's the sun, where's the moon, where's the rising. So Aquarius rising is going to be different. The moon in Virgo, it needs to be practical and follow a step-by-step process. The sun in Taurus, this makes people feel comfortable. This is a person who, just being around them, people are going to want to listen to her tell them what to do because they feel comfortable. With the sun in the fourth house, this is also a very spiritual placement because the sun is our core essence, and the fourth house is not just our home, but our home in our own selves. So being around someone like this, you could really feel like you're just more comfortable being yourself. Also, Mars is a planet of action. So having Scorpio ruled by Mars in the third house, we're going to have, even just setting aside the houses and looking at Mars plus Pluto. What's Mars plus Pluto? Action plus transformation. So you just use a keyword for each planet, put it together, and tell the story. What's action plus transformation? That could be doing yoga because you're moving in a way that you transform. This could also be like, if it made aspects to Saturn, let's say it was Mars and conjunct Saturn, that would tell us it could be taking action in business, could help people transform. Let's say Mars was an aspect to Chiron, that would be taking action toward healing and helping people transform. Another way you can look at it is, Scorpio is the investigator. So with Scorpio, they want to get to the bottom of things. This person could enjoy research and talking to people about what they've researched. But again, with Mars and Aries here, I feel a very strong sense this person, they're going to tell people what to do, they're going to take charge, or they're going to lead in some way. So then if we wanted to really take this a step further, we could follow this trail, okay? We could follow the trail. We can look at the aspects. We can look at the aspects to Mars, the aspects to Pluto. There's a Pluto-Chiron opposition, Pluto-Jupiter opposition. So this person's going to have challenges between themselves and the other with the first and seventh house. Look at the houses in their chart where they have planets. These are going to be their challenges. So Pluto opposite Jupiter is going to be, they have to transform how they show up in relationships in order to expand their identity. And they might not want to. They might not naturally want to work on relationships. They might naturally want to work on their own stuff because they have Jupiter in the first house. They want to just work on their own healing journey. That's part of their identity because Chiron in the first, Jupiter in the first, identity as someone who heals. And even early in life, this person could have had an identity as someone who was a victim or someone who, had bad things happen to them. Remember what I said about Scorpio placements. Anyone with Scorpio placements is going to possibly experience trauma in their lives. Okay, so we can also look at the energy of the sign that the midheaven ruler is in. So again, we have two to look at. So we know the midheaven is Scorpio, so we know that's a water sign. We know it's going to have emotional depth and intensity. We also know with Scorpio that the person has to be invested in what they're doing. They have to really, really care and be passionate about what they're doing. So then we look to Mars. Where is Mars? In Aries. Again, this brings in leadership and confidence. And then where is Pluto? In Virgo. So we look at the energetic signatures of Virgo. What is Virgo? Order and service. You can go back to that section of the video once you know what house your midheaven ruler is in and watch it again. Virgo is order and service. So Pluto in Virgo means you're going to transform how you're of service. It also means, with the moon here too, that this person really needs to feel like they're being of service in order to be connected. So they got to be passionate, they got to be of service, and they got to take the lead. That is what this person needs in their career to be happy. Because they have Mars in a fire sign, they probably need it to be expansive, something that changes all the time. Because Scorpio is a water sign, and that's where their midheaven is. They're going to use their emotional depth. Because Virgo is an earth sign, they're going to need to be practical with Virgo. It needs to make sense, okay? It needs to be in a certain order that makes sense to the person. Okay, so if she's going to be successful in her career, she has to do it in the right order. She can't just trust the universe, okay? Because even though she might want to, because she has Jupiter and Chiron in Pisces, that placement is not on her midheaven. This person could write a book. Why? Because their second house ruler is in their ninth house. If you guys want me to do a video on the second and sixth house, let me know in a comment below, and I will do videos on money and daily work, and we can put it all together. So that is what I have for this sample chart. Let me know, guys, if you have questions. Also, if you want to be entered to be one of the people who I use for their example chart in one of my future videos, join my Instagram because I do giveaways there. So if you comment on one of my giveaway posts, you could be the featured winner in one of my upcoming astrology videos. So you can find me on Instagram at the Saffron Sage. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video on how to align your career using your astrology chart. Let me know in a comment below if this video was helpful. And just to recap, you guys, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the sign on the cusp of your 10th house. You're going to look at the element of that sign, and then you're going to look to where the ruler is of that 10th house, where the 10th house ruler lands in your astrology chart, what house it lands in. Now, if you want to take this a step further, you can then look at the sign on that house, okay? So if your 10th house ruler is in the second house, you can look at the sign on that house and then see where its ruler is, and you can just keep going to kind of build the story. Another next step is you can look at aspects to the midheaven ruler to see what it connects to. Are there planets conjunct it? Is there something trining it? Is there something squaring it? And what the themes of those planets in connection with each other mean. So that is what I have for this video, you guys. Make sure you hit the bell and subscribe so you get notified when I put out more videos like this. And don't forget to find me on Instagram if you want to be entered. And thank you so much for all your comments, your likes, your shares. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you in the next video.